everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for coming along on a live and streaming. Before we get started today, I really want to thank everyone who showed up to these things. I really appreciate it. We appreciate it. My lazy co-host Espen over here appreciates it. And I just want to give a shout out to all the people. You know, you have Varun, Crystal Kenzo, Eric Larson, Mike McCauley, Claire from Liverpool, Darren Diggle, Scott Dockendorf, everyone around the world for joining in. Thank you. And there was this one question from the last episode that I had Carlos Cruz from Warbringer on. It was from Pat Thompson. And this question was if I do research on any of the guests that I have on. Actually, I don't. The people that I have on the show, I'm fans of, either fans of their music, their art, their accomplishments in life as humans. And, you know, I just want to share it with you all that what I'm a fan of, you know. I mean, sharing is caring. And, you know, that's how I discover a lot of either music, movies, and other stuff is from people sharing it. So I want to do the same and share it with everyone. So without further ado, this episode is about Ale Industries. We did 3 collaborations with them so far. And actually, this collaboration wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for a PAC member, Varun, who's somewhere in the world. He used to live in the Bay Area, but he's somewhere now. But thank you, Varun. And through this collaboration with Ale Industries, you know, we grown fond of these guys. We like them as people, and we love their beer. And Casey and Morgan from Ale Industries should be jumping in a few seconds here. So let's see if, you know, they get on. I hope everyone's having a good Saturday. All right. Hey, Casey.
Hey, man.
How you doing? Just waiting for Morgan to jump on. Yeah. How's everything?
Everything's going great, man. Yeah, Morgan's at the brewery today, and I'm dialing in from home. So.
All right. Whoa. There's Morgan. Hey, Morgan.
Hey, howdy.
All right. We have Casey and Morgan. You know, Casey, Morgan, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell the whole world what Ale Industry is about, how it came about. Talk about yourselves.
Awesome. All right. So, Ale Industries is a brewery here in Oakland that we opened up back in 2009. And so at this point, we're Oakland's oldest brewery. We've kind of been known for doing a little off the wall type stuff. You know, one of our big beers that we do is a beer without hops. We like to team up with Death Angel, do all that kind of fun stuff. So it's something that it's fueled by the passion of our love of beer, similar to, you know, why a musician needs to play, you know.
Casey?
Yeah, so my name's Casey. I'm one of the partners of Ale Industries, and I basically, you know, to add on to all the stuff that Morgan has said, I think that, you know, we do beers that aren't just, you know, 27 different IPAs. Like we have, like Morgan said, we have a beer, a Golden State of Mind with no hops. We do all the fun, new, you know, kind of cutting edge beer styles, and we also do some, you know, more traditional beer. Not necessarily the trendy beers, but then sometimes they come around and become trendy again. So that's just our commitment to making interesting beer and flavors. And I think we've seen that through the beers we've even done with you guys. We haven't just done the straight, you know, super bitter IPAs. So although Castor Shame was a big IPA, but if anybody remembers that original one. And then in terms of the brewery, my day to day, I just help poke people to keep them on task, right, Morgan?
Yeah, so my job day to day is to dodge Casey's pokings.
Yes.
While I'm trying to actually brew beer and get it into cans.
Yeah, it's basically like Tom and Jerry. I don't know who Tom and Jerry is, but it's basically like, or the Roadrunner and the Coyote.
Yeah, that's right. You know what? We always wanted to do a beer collaborations because, you know, a lot of bands were doing it, particularly Iron Maiden was one with their Trooper. And all of a sudden, a mutual friend and a PAC member of ours, Varun worked with you guys. And he actually touched base with us and asked us if we wanted to do a beer collaboration with you guys. So we thought about it, and we came down for a beer tasting over at Ale Industries. And have to say, man, I'm not a beer connoisseur. I don't drink, but I had quite a few of your beers, and they're really, really tasty, man. It's like,
thank you.
I was like, okay, I could do this. And if we wanted to slap our logo on a beer, it had to be really good. And you guys make some good beers, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think when you guys came down, you tasted kind of the gamut of things that we can offer, and we wanted to make something that was kind of interesting, but then not too intense or over the reasonableness. And Varun's great. He's listening now. I think he posted a link, and then I saw myself on the share. But he was an intern one summer,
okay,
from Berkeley, and he made that suggestion that we collaborate with you guys, and that's how the whole thing started. But we've now done 3 beers. We're loving it.
Yeah, 3 beers, 3 awesome beers. And you know what? I'm going to share my screen here. I want to get to the first beer, which is Caster of Shame. Let's see here. This is the first collaboration we did with you guys. And just a factoid to all our DA fans, the artwork was done by Joey James Hernandez. And you'll probably see this artwork on some of our merchandise through the past. We had that on quite a few of our merchandise. And the beer layout, which is great, was done by a friend of ours, Mike Percali. And this one was just a regular IPA, and it tasted really good. So,
yeah, it's funny. You'll notice, Ted, the alcohol percent. A funny story is it was meant to be 6.66%, and somebody rounded it up because they were like, "Oh, yeah, that's basically 6.7." We were like, "Dude, what the hell?"
Yeah.
And so on the next beer, we nailed it. We stuck the 6.66.
Yeah. The next beer you did was Divine Defector. This one, and this is a double IPA too. It's like 8.5. That's strong.
Yeah. Not only is it a double IPA, but it's a juicy IPA, which is a kind of a new beer style. So I'll let Morgan talk a little bit about that. But it's not just a hop bomb. It's got this kind of juicy quality to it that you wouldn't even know that it's almost 9%.
Yeah. So the that beer actually has a couple unique things to it. First one being that it's a juicy IPA, which what that basically means is that the hops are loaded towards the end of the boil. So the longer hops are boiled, the more the bitterness comes out. The less amount of times they're in the kettle boiling, more of that fruitiness and aroma and flavor is used. So on juicy IPAs, the idea is to get as much flavor and aroma out of the hops, but kind of leaving the bitterness to West Coast IPAs instead. The second thing that's really fun about that beer is we used, at that point, it was really new to us, a strain of yeast called Kvak, which is a Norwegian yeast strain that performs totally different than most yeasts out there. It enjoys much warmer temperatures and gives off these awesome tropical fruit flavors and whatnot. And I think in that particular beer, you're going to find a lot of guava and pineapple and mango and whatnot. So that was a beer that I really enjoyed.
Wow.
Did we lose Mark on the internet?
Yeah, it's okay. Anyways,
Yeah,
while we're waiting for him, Casey.
Yeah, just to speak to that what he was saying is like we have a fermenter.
Almost as much as I enjoy drinking.
Hey Morgan, you're having you might want to get closer to the Wi-Fi because you're cutting in and out.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I don't know where what he was saying, but I think that the point of what he was saying is that the tank that we have that we did this with, it's one of our smaller tanks that we weren't able to really use because it doesn't have a jacketed insulation. So all these tanks you see behind Morgan, they have a double wall, which means they have this coolant that goes around the outside of the tank. Even it never touches the beer, but it keeps the beer cold, even in the hot summer days. And we had one tank that didn't have that jacket. So we really couldn't use it because in the winter it was too cold, in the summer it was too hot. And with this Queck yeast, it loves it hot, like as hot as you can get it. That's when it produces these really interesting qualities. So we had done it with a couple different beers, and then finally with you guys, we did the Divine Defector, with that beer, and we made it a juicy, which those natural guava, kind of ripe fruit flavors are great for a juicy IPA as well. So it came out really, really well. It was perfectly complementary, and we were able to use that tank that normally we couldn't use due to the yeast. So it was just like a perfect combination of factors.
Yeah, the Divine Defector, the first edition, was really good. Now the special edition, it's a juicy IPA.
Yep.
Right here, but it's not a double, if I could remember right. But it's juicy.
Yeah.
And again, I got to do a shout out. Both of these, the artwork was done by Joey James Hernandez, and the beer can layout was done by Peter Quo, with help from you guys on the special edition. Now I want to talk about the special edition. That came right at lockdown.
Yeah.
It came out of nowhere, but you want to talk about that one?
Yeah. So we called that the Salvation IPA. So
yeah.
We had just gotten word about that we were going to get shut down, and everybody was going into shelter in place. Obviously you guys have folks from around the world watching this, and everybody around the world has experienced some version of this, but we were like, what the hell are we going to do? Right. I mean, our accounts are all shut down. We're shut down in our tap room, to have people drinking in the tap room, that even though it's a smaller part of our business, it makes up half of our profit, because, it's the on-premise or in the building sales are much higher profit than selling it to a guy who sells it to a guy who sells it to a guy into the supermarket. So we were looking at the prospect of just getting our knees cut off, or our legs cut off at the knees, and trying to figure out how we were going to make it. And so we did a couple things. One, we did a GoFundMe, which is still up, and we got a pretty good level of contributions to that. And every dollar of that is going back to folks as a gift card, so they're not actually out any money; they still get to use it. And it gave us the ability to kind of flatten out that pinch a little bit further. And so once we can open up, which we haven't yet, we're going to send out all those gift cards, and there are some other perks to that GoFundMe. But then in addition, we're like, okay, what else can we do? And we had an e-commerce platform that we had just signed up for that would facilitate sales interstate, because usually that's a thing that we can only sell within our state. And they have a platform that allows us to ship to, Morgan, how many, is it like 30 states or 32 states or something like that?
Gosh, it's somewhere up in there, 38 states, I want to say.
Yeah. So
that's really awesome that you were able to ship to like 38 states. That's great.
Yeah, it was a huge thing. So that kind of arrived at the same time as the shutdown. And then we were like, okay, well, we have a beer that we hadn't named it yet. We hadn't released it yet. It was still just kind of in the fermenters. And we're like, this is very similar to the Divine Defector. It's got some dry hopping. It's got some other interesting qualities. It's not quite as high in alcohol, but it's the same yeast. And we're like, let's see if Death Angel is interested in doing a collaboration on this one. And that's when I reached out to Trisha, and the idea came for using the artwork that we didn't end up using on the Divine Defector. And then we call it Special Edition Salvation IPA, because it was literally saving our company.
Yeah.
And then we put that up. And I remember when I was in the loading bay after you guys had done your post, and I just, my phone just kept going like ding, 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 like out of a cartoon or something. And I looked, and there was like 100 and something orders in there. And I was like, geez, this is crazy. So yeah, it did turn out to be a Salvation IPA in many, many senses of the word.
Yeah. I'm glad we were able to help, and we want to thank all the people who bought the Salvation IPA and all the other, cans, for helping out, and especially the Salvation IPA helping out during the lockdown times. And I bought some, and I had one can, and it was good, man. It was really good. You guys did a good job on that one.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm stoked on it. So, we've had some events, Death Angel, at L Industries. We had a couple of beer events. We had our listening party there, and we even had an emergency photo shoot at your at Ale Industries. It was funny, this story where we were supposed to do a photo shoot outside for the Humanicide record. And that day, our photographer came up from LA. All right, we're going to shoot, but the weather was gloomy. It was raining. And we were like, so we just decided to call you and said, hey man, could we do a photo shoot in your place? And you were just so open armed and said, yeah, go ahead, man. Yeah, we're doing a photo shoot while people are having beer and all that stuff. So I want to thank you guys for that. That was cool, man. Really cool.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you got some good pictures of like you drinking right off the tanks and stuff like that.
No. We have some good pictures, that has been used for a lot of press stuff. So it's cool, we want to thank you for letting us do that. Now I want to get to the
nice.
How you guys holding up during lockdown?
That album release, though, that was really fun.
Yeah, that was
boy,
awesome.
It's a tough one. We're still here. We're doing it. We're still making beer. We haven't gotten rid of any employees through it, but it's definitely a huge challenge that's forced us to think like, hey, how do we make this work? Our curbside is working out something good for us. Through that same online platform that Casey was talking about, we've been able to ship beer out and about, which is super helpful. But we're really hopeful that this is something that can change up here in the near future. This isn't something that's we're going to be able to weather long term. We can't do this forever.
Yeah, that's true. You guys, I know you guys are shipping now to 38 states, which is awesome. Do you think the goal is maybe at least getting to all 50?
I'm not against it.
Yeah. So for us, really the goal for us is to expand locally, and there's so much opportunity just in the Bay Area. I mean, just in California is a massive undertaking. So the good part about the states, like the states that we've added, that's come as a part of that platform that we're on. So as they open up more states, we can ship to more states. But yeah, our biggest goal right now is just being laser focused on, producing great beers, distributing them to the folks that want to take us on locally to start, and then really nailing that, and then slowly expanding from there. And then the e-commerce, as the orders come in, we just ship them out. So it doesn't really take much distraction off of that core focus. And really the opening up those states is kind of out of our hands. That's all that all has to do with the platform.
Yeah, each state has their different rules and whatnot of getting out.
Yeah, some states will never get open. They just have their own unique, weird, it's just an old industry. I mean, alcohol it's one of the first industries in the United States, right? Like when the settlers first arrived, I mean, pretty quickly they started developing laws around that, and it's just built and built and built, and each state has its own little guarded wall around it in terms of alcohol.
Now, I'm gonna rewind back real quick. When we did Cast Their Shame the first time, you were getting inquiries from around the world, weren't you, Casey? Like from Sweden or something? Yeah,
we had all sorts of. Yeah, it was neat. The thing is about alcohol is it's such a lockdown thing. I mean, not only among the states, but among the countries. And there's so many levels of distribution, not only baked into the system because of the history, but because it takes a lot of work to get stuff from brewing in our brewery to actually pouring it in a pint at somebody's bar. Like there's distributors, there's shipping, there's all sorts of things that go into that. So with the Cast Their Shame, we did get people all over like asking. Same thing with Divine Defector, but when you're like, oh, okay, cool, let's talk about how to get that in there. We got to do these 723 things. People are like, I don't know about that, man. and then we just kind of stayed being able to ship it directly. But there was definitely a lot of interest in the beer itself, mostly because you guys are just really loved by your fans community. So
yeah. I mean, that's cool that you guys get a lot of interest. I think that's awesome. There's a question here from one of the viewers. It's from Kelly and Jeff. I know who Kelly and Jeff are. Ever considering doing a non-alcoholic beer for sober fans?
Yeah, I think I'll let Morgan speak to that a little bit. The thing about us as a small brewery is that every tank is maxed out. Like we're just constantly running it like max. And so people ask us like, hey, can you do this beer that you did before again? And the answer is always like, man, the way the beer industry is going and the way beer fans, they always want this new stuff. So we got to come up with a new beer every, like several times a month. We have to come up with a brand new beer we've never brewed before. And there's never time to go back and brew even a classic that did really well for us, because we always have to do the new thing. And then the flip side is that in order to make that happen, we've got to sell the beer really, really quickly. And so we have to stay focused because every dollar counts. So if we don't sell something that will sell super fast, then it is hard for us as a small company. So in terms of a non-alcoholic beer, I think we may experiment with that like on a really small nano batch. Like we have a 20-gallon system that we can brew really small batches. In terms of a large production batch, though, it might be hard to, take up a whole tank to do that if, we weren't just positive that it would fly off the shelves right away. So, Morgan, I'll let you speak to that a little bit too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Hey, Morgan, dude, you got to go by the office, man. We can't hear you.
Idea of a non-alcoholic beer, lunchtime and all that kind of stuff. Can you hear me now?
Hey, Morgan, can you hear me?
No?
This is what happens in the lockdown. Everyone's on the internet.
Yeah, Morgan, you got to go close to the office, man. We can't hear you.
Yeah. Is it any better now? Yeah, I have a signal. All right. Well, I've got a full signal here. Let me see if I walk directly into the office, if that changes anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So what were you saying about the non-alcoholic?
So I like the idea of a non-alcoholic beer, not only just for people who are sober, but for non-sober people, for lunchtime, if you're hanging out with your kids and whatnot. But one of the problems with it is there's two methods of making non-alcoholic beer that I know of. One of them is tricking the yeast to stay in an aerobic phase where it's actually consuming oxygen. During that phase, it doesn't produce any alcohol. I don't think that the quality, the taste is very good there. The best way to make a non-alcoholic beer where the taste is great is by doing, basically you distill it and you pull the alcohol out through distillation, but you don't want to cook it. So you have to do it under a vacuum where liquids evaporate at a much lower temperature. And that's an investment of a lot of equipment in order to pull off a non-alcoholic beer to the quality level that what we would be looking for. So,
Gotcha.
Can't you freeze it too, Morgan? Like alcohol has a different freezing point than water, right? So you can freeze it and then take out the alcohol.
That is a method. The problem with that though is that when you unfreeze it, there's certain things that change, and especially carbonic acid, and it produces H2O or water. So you end up with kind of a more watered down product afterwards. And you also, a lot of the volatile aromas, the things that come out of the beer that smell really great, also freeze at a temperature similar to alcohol. So you end up stripping those out as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then the other thing that somebody just said about the gluten-free beers, so either gluten-free or gluten-reduced. I think it's kind of a similar thing in that we're really small and it's hard to fit that stuff in. But even more importantly, when you're doing gluten-free or any of that stuff, like you got to be locked down in terms of not letting any gluten in, because if people are going to be consuming that because of an allergy, and that's really something you got to focus on. Like there are people who that's all they do and they still have a hard time with it. So, for us, I think that would be a tall order to be able to really pull it off in a way that was materially, safe if that was the goal. Gluten reduced might be a possibility, but it's the same thing. Like we've got at our size, we've got to be able to sell the thing super, super fast. Otherwise it becomes hard to justify the tank space on it.
Gotcha. Well, let Morgan, I want to see this tour of the tap room in
Yeah, well,
Ale Industries.
hopefully I'm able to get a good enough signal to be able to pull that off. So let me see here.
So, hey, Morgan, you might want to stand and just kind of point back there. And in between each section, maybe ask us if we can still hear you so that you know that it's still good. Did we lose Morgan?
Yeah. You know how it is. Like I said earlier, during this lockdown, it's like everyone's streaming. So whoa, he just appeared out of nowhere.
Am I back on now?
You were frozen, so I don't have high hopes. I think you're too far down, dude.
Yeah, shoot. So let me see if I can come over here.
Why don't you stand by the office but flip the camera around, or stand in the loading bay, flip the camera around.
Yeah.
And you do have a camera on the back.
See how I can do that.
Yeah. Should be like a little reverse button. Yeah.
See here.
There we go.
How's that working for people?
Yeah, back up a little bit more into the loading bay so that you're closer to the router. There we go. All right.
Slowly getting there.
Did we lose him again? Well, so I'll give the tour
Okay.
on what we're seeing right now. So first and foremost, right over to the left, you see those big tanks.
Yeah.
That is the last part of the process. So that's actually not the start. If you look in the kind of the middle of the screen at the very back, that little chute thing there, you can kind of see something at a vertical angle. So that is on the left of that, behind that kind of tank there, there's our mill, and that's where it starts. So we get the barley, bags, big sacks of barley, we put it into the mill, and then we grind the grain that kind of, exposes the stuff inside of it. So it's not turning into powder. It's just kind of grinding it a little bit. And then it gets conveyed into that tank, which is called the mash tun. Excuse me, that copper looking tank that the vertical bit, or not vertical, horizontal bit is kind of going into. So what that is it's a special kind of tank that has a false bottom, which has a screen on the bottom of it, so that the grain can sit on top of that screen and the liquid can fall down below it. So kind of to describe it is you would end up with this tank filled up with the grain, and then kind of like a little cavity at the bottom where the grain can't get to because of this screen that's on there, this metal screen. And so then what we would do is heat up water in that tank, that big fat short tank to the left there. That's our boil kettle. We'll heat up water, and then we'll put it in to that mash tun and fill it up so that the grain is kind of like a soup or a stew, and it will just soak at a certain temperature, usually between 150 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And it'll just sit there for, some amount of time, less than an hour, but I think Morgan might correct me if he can speak to it, but something like 20
I don't know if you guys can hear me or not, but so it goes through what's called saccharification, which is where the enzymes in the grain will break apart the starches, turn them into sugars, and that takes approximately 1 hour.
Wow.
So then once we've now converted that grain, the sugar, the starches in the grain into sugar, then we'll recirculate it and kind of suck the grain acts as kind of like a natural filter bed. And then at some point we take all the liquid from the bottom and put it into the boil kettle. And so now what we have is the sugar that's been taken out of that grain, and it's just a liquid. It's basically a big sugar water liquid soup, essentially. And we start the boil. So if we didn't add hops into it, you would just end up with a sugary, kind of base. And then if you fermented that, you would get a beer with alcohol, but no bitterness to it. So we add hops. Typically you'll add at least, 2 to 3 hop additions at different times of the boil. The longer you boil hops, the more you're going to get the bitterness from them. And the shorter you boil hops, like right at the end, the more you're going to get just the aroma of it. So in the middle is the flavor. So we typically add hops at the very beginning to give the bitterness, and then we'll add it like 15 minutes before the end of the boil to get some flavor, and then we'll add it right at the end to get the aroma. And for some hop additions, like our East Bay, or some beers like our East Bay IPA has 5 hop additions. Some beers like the Juicy IPA that Morgan was saying, it might only have hops at the end. So you're not getting a lot of bitterness. You're getting a lot of hop flavor and aroma rather than the bitterness. So you can play around with the flavor in the beer by not only the grains that you use, because different grains have different qualities, the roast level of the grains, and then the amount of grain will give you the amount of sugar, which then gets fermented out. So that controls the alcohol, because the yeast converts the sugar to the alcohol and carbon dioxide. And then the hops, which give you a lot of, there's hundreds or even thousands of different types of hops, which I don't know if you've ever smelled hops, but it's actually the same like genus or species or family as marijuana. So it's like got this really kind of dank, grassy flavor to it. It doesn't have any THC or anything, but it gives that bitterness. Once we've then boiled it for an hour at least, then we'll cool it down and we'll take that into one of those tanks on the left there, and we'll add the yeast. And at that point, then the yeast converts the sugar. It starts consuming the sugar and produces alcohol and carbon dioxide. Once it consumes all the sugar, then the yeast will naturally settle out, and you'll be left with beer with some percent, usually between 3 to 13% alcohol. And then from there, you don't actually get the carbonation from the fermentation, even though the yeast will produce CO2. We just let that CO2 go out. And in fact, Morgan, are there any beers in active fermentation right now where you could see the CO2?
Yeah. So some of our beers are naturally, but
yeah. So you see that bubbling. That bubbling is coming just from the yeast producing the carbon dioxide and alcohol. Wow. So it's heavy, man. Like it's in there roiling around. And so you'll notice that takes a day or two to kind of kick off, and then it'll go for several days at least, sometimes longer. And then once that dies down, that's usually an indicator that the sugar has been consumed, and we'll do some measurements and actually check scientifically. And then once that is stable, then we call in a mobile canning line. It's like these folks that come from outside, they take out all their canning stuff, and then they can up the beer, and then they take off, and we're left with the beer in the pallet. So I'll let Morgan add to any bits I glossed over.
So wait a minute, do they can? A mobile canning company comes to Ale and cans all the beers?
Yeah, so we used to bottle everything, hand bottle it, in our facility. And when cans started becoming super popular, the thing is, did we want to get our own canning line, which could be $50,000 to $100,000, or did we want to have somebody come in and bring their canning line in and just maintain it, keep it clean, know how to operate it, know how to deal with all the issues that come along with it. And we pay a little bit more to can it, but we don't have to deal with all the, specialization and understanding how to deal with that machine, and we didn't have to pay for the machine. So yeah, we have a total outside team come in and can it for us, and then they take off, and then we're able to just keep the space for ourselves.
So once it's canned, do you guys ship it yourselves?
We do, yeah. We self-distribute throughout the Bay.
How is the beer cared for shipped?
Say again?
How is the beers cared for when it's shipped?
Yeah, so we have trucks, biodiesel powered trucks, and our brew house is actually biodiesel powered. And we process cooking oil into biodiesel in order to power both our trucks and our brew house. And we have a machine in the brewery that does that. But once the beer is ready, we have it in case packs, and then we just put it in the back of our truck and take it down to the store basically and put it in their loading bay. So it's not it's just what you'd imagine, a dude with a beard throwing some beer in the back of his truck and driving it down to the local Costco or Safeway or whatever.
Or Whole Foods. I see them at Whole Foods.
Yeah, we're all. I mean, we're in pretty much every major chain in the Bay Area. So you know, we've got quite a distribution network at this point. And I know the Whole Foods folks were. It's an interesting industry because to get into a big supermarket like Safeway, the challenge is, first off, Safeway doesn't have the kind of the trendy. They don't have as much of the trendy format. So like the Juicy and Hazy's and the 16-ounce cans, they're like, we want 12-ounce cans. We'll take some interesting styles, but it's got to be these kind of things that are a little bit, sometimes they're a little bit behind the new cutting edge. And if we did get the Castor Shame or Divine Defector or whatever into Safeway, that takes months to do that. So by the time we got it in, the beer would be out, right? They're meant to be like these year-round, you know, constant things. But the way that the craft beer industry craft beer has evolved is hyper fast beer. I mean, we'll brew a beer and it'll be gone in a week. And then we brew the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I mean, we've done probably 50 beers, different beers, every time different in the past couple of years. And so what Whole Foods does, which is kind of cool, is they say, hey, we're going to give you an item, a SKU, which is what they call it, that you can give us whatever you want. It just has to be something that we can predictably, you know, understand what it's going to be. So we have a rotating IPA SKU. So we'll have that might be a juicy, it might be a hazy, it might be a West Coast IPA, but whatever we have that's new, that's like an IPA, we can just put through that SKU. So with Whole Foods, we can just say, hey, the SKU right now is going to be the Death Angel beer. And they're like, hell yeah, dude, bring it in. And we can just get it on the shelf super fast without having to like go through this huge laborious process.
So yeah, so it's good to have direct contact with them on that one.
Yeah, and they also have like a lot of more autonomy in their stores about what the individual stores can bring in, rather than it being a big like top down kind of centrally planned situation.
Gotcha. Now, do you have any cool beers brewing right now? Anything, you know, for people to come check out, either order online or curbside pickup if you're in the Bay Area?
Yeah, we do actually. Let me see if it's on our Instagram yet.
Well, while you're looking, speaking of Instagram, you guys, we follow you on Instagram. I suggest everyone should. You guys are pretty social and engaging on that. I think, you know, was it Porter the Cat and Amber? Yeah, local cats that hang out at the brewery. It's cool. And, you know, it's good to see people from the community coming by and supporting you guys during this time, you know, with curbside pickup and all that stuff.
Yeah, so, check out if you I don't have I can pull it up here. Maybe I can share my screen or something. Let me pull up the can here. Let's see here. How do I get here? Oh, here we go. Okay. Yeah, we posted it to our beer club, and I will post. I'm going to look up the picture from the beer club that we posted here.
While you're looking for a photo, there's this question from a viewer. I'm going to read it off to you. Is the pressure to constantly create and innovate new beer releasing taxing?
I would say no. I think that's actually the enjoyable part of it. You know, when you create beers that end up being your year-round beers, you don't lose any love for them at all. It's still something that's really fun to do, and it's something that, you know, I stock my refrigerator with them and whatnot. But it becomes more of like you're just part of the machine producing those beers. But when you make something new, you get to explore new hops, new flavors, new yeast like the Quebec yeast and whatnot. And I think that's really where the fun in brewing, why everyone gets into it. I think that's where it's at. So I think that's actually one of the most like enthralling parts of the job.
Gotcha. It's interesting because it's like what Morgan's saying, to make something new is, especially if that's your thing, if you like making beer like Morgan does, if you love it, you know, it would never be taxing. In fact, that's the thing that you want to do, is combine all these flavors to make something. In a similar way, I imagine that's like music, right? Like you get to come up with new stuff, and play with, if somebody said like, you got to play these new instruments and this new kind of guitar and this new, you got to come up with something new, you'd be like, fuck, this is a cool challenge,
Yeah,
but it's nerve wracking I guess maybe in the music thing, like you could play around with it and go, yeah, that doesn't sound so good, so we won't do that again. With beer, we have to nail it every time. Like if we don't stick it each time, it could be, tens of thousands of dollars down the drain, like
And
literally down the drain.
Yeah.
And somehow we have avoided that. Like we've rarely had a beer that was just people didn't like. And the only one that I can think of was that raw ale that we did, Morgan, that was
I know
interesting.
people who loved it though.
Yeah, there were people who loved it, but there were a lot of
Yeah.
people who were like, what the hell is this thing,
Yeah.
man?
Yeah.
And we didn't quite nail that one, but for the most part, Morgan's able to come up with a recipe. Think like when we met with you guys, we were like, okay, what are you thinking? What do you like? And then he was able to then interpret that and make that beer based on what you were thinking. And
he nailed it.
Thing. So yeah, it's not grueling at all. It's just a little nerve wracking that if you don't do it just right, and then that happens again and again, that you could go out of business. It's
Gotcha.
like Elon Musk when he kept trying the rockets.
Yeah.
There was some tweet where he was like, yeah, it was when the rocket blew up, and he was like, yeah, if this happens again, we're toast. We got to close down. Like we got one more basically.
Gotcha.
And I obviously this is a much lower stakes than that, but it's the same thing. It's like these are little rockets that we're launching, and you can only do that so many times if you don't nail it. So I hope that answers the question.
So this one of your new beers?
Yeah. So let me give you the history here, because this is kind of like wild.
It's a really cool design.
Yeah, it's cute, huh? So
Yeah.
we did a beer over like 2 years ago, Morgan. It was berry lemons. It was an Otter Pop series beer. So let me see if I can actually pull it up on our Instagram here. You remember Otter Pops, right?
Yo, come on, Sir Isaac Lime.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, you even have a flavor, man. So you remember how they used to cut your lips? You remember on like as a kid when you'd suck on these things? So we did this berry lemons, and it was really well received. It was what's called a kettle sour, which is like not a barrel aged sour. It's not a funky sour. It's just a super clean sour that's brewed with lactobacillus. So it gives it this really tart, kind of brightness.
Mm-hmm.
So we did this as a first part of our Otter Pop series, and we had a good reception. So then we did it again with this Annie Apricot Oakley, which is another Otter Pop kind of themed thing that we came up with. We should probably stop calling it Otter Pops in case we get sued by the Otter Pop company. They're not Otter Pops. They're Ale Industries Pops.
Yeah,
So
Ale Pops.
What is that?
Ale Pops.
Yeah,
Ale Pops.
Yeah, so then we did another one. Oh, actually, yeah. So then we came up. The third one was this Razzle Lasso. So it's a raspberry kettle sour, raspberry and lemonade, and so that's in our tank right now, and we're going to be canning it on Tuesday, and it'll be available shipping out. I think we'll probably have it up on Tuesday or Wednesday, shipping from the brewery. So on the website. So yeah, that's the thing that we're doing now. And then we also have another IPA coming up soon, right? Simulation Theory. Morgan, did you brewed that?
We have a couple different IPAs coming up. We got Simulation Theory, which is a single IPA using our normal California yeast, and then we've got a double Queck coming out as well. And these are using some of the newer hops. When I was talking about being able to use newer stuff, one of the hops that we're using is still called HBC 472. They haven't even given it a name yet. So that's how kind of new and it is new of a hop it is, which is pretty exciting when you're a brewer and you're using a hop with just letters and numbers to it. Makes you think that you're doing something covert, but the hops themselves have a tropical fruit and also coconut oaky type flavor. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
And then we're going to be doing more of the the barrel aged stuff coming up soon. So we reorganized our barrel area to make it more accessible, and we're going to be putting more stuff to barrel age it as well. So each barrel can have its own unique flavor and characteristics. So really, it's like having 100 different beers, and then we might blend to get some consistency. But that's kind of an interesting thing as well.
That is so awesome, man. I mean, you guys are really doing it. Good beers, creating some stuff. I just got. I'm gonna ask you something. You know, it's a crazy question. You can shoot me if you want. Should we do a summer brew together?
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Let's do
it. Woo! That just popped in my mind right now because as I was watching you with these new releases of beer, I was like, should we do a summer brew? I mean, we just hit the summer.
Yeah. I think, man, we're always down to do a collaboration beer. So,
all right,
let's chat more. We'd love it.
Yeah, let's do that. But all these brews that that you come up with, that's the ones that you're canning on Tuesday. How can people order these brews?
Yeah, so if you go to, let me show you here. I'm going to share my screen again.
Yeah.
So if you go to aleindustries.com and you click up in, I think it's, I can't see, store, and you go to beer delivery, it'll take you to this aleindustries.bev.com. And this is where we have all the beers that we can either mail out, or we'll have it ready for you when you show up in the curbside. So right now we don't have our IPA on right now. We're out of that until Tuesday, but we have a couple beers on here, and then we have, Morgan, we got to get the 16-ounce Golden State of Mine that we just canned up, the new beer. Yeah. So when we do have the beer available or even pre-order, it's up on this. If you go to our website and click on beer, you can get it here, and it'll allow you to either pick UPS shipping or do local. They have a local delivery if you're in the Bay Area, and people will literally come pick it up. It's like the Uber of beer delivery. They'll come pick it up and then take it to you for sometimes less than the UPS cost. And then you can also order it to come in and pick up at the tap room. So yeah, just come to our website and order it, and you can have it.
Oh man, you know what? It's in the US, it's 4th of July. I might have to stop by before the festivities tonight and pick up some of your brews and have some, and just to say hello to everyone. I mean,
Rob actually rolled by yesterday and picked up some beer. So.
Oh, right on. Yeah, you know what? I mean, coming by Ale Industries, the times that we've been there, even before we had events, it's really a cool place to hang out. There's some pets and the locals that just kick it there, and the people that work there. It feels like each other. It's like a community type thing. Yeah.
Speaking of the pets and the cats, somebody mentioned in the chat about the cat.
Yeah.
So Porter, our cat, who's like the love bug of Instagram, like everybody loves him. He's Insta famous. He's loves kind of begging for burritos and stuff. And he gets aggressive. He has a food problem. We don't feed him because he's like the gremlins. If he gets some food after midnight, he turns into a little demon. But he's just disappeared, like for weeks at a time, sometimes like a month at a time. He would disappear, and then he would just show up one day like nothing happened, and then he'd disappear again. And like a week ago, we had a dude come into the brewery and say, "Hey, here's your cat." And he was in a cat carrier. And we were like, "What the hell?" He's like, "Your cat's hanging out at my house, and there's a bunch of other cats, and I don't want him there anymore. So here he is back." And I was like, how the hell does this guy know where this cat lives? Like, how did he know to bring it back to the brewery?
Was it through Instagram?
Maybe, man. This cat's famous. So he brought it back, and Porter hung out for a day, and then he took off again. And I think he went back to the place. Like, you can't control this cat. He's a force of nature.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I mean, before I wrap this up, guys, thank you for joining this one. It's really cool. I mean, I'm stoked that we were able to collaborate with you. Not only that, I just also love sharing the things that I love.
Yeah.
You guys and Ale Industries, and thank you for the collaboration. And I suggest everyone who's watching at least go to their website, check out some of their brews, buy it, taste it. I can guarantee you guys will really, really dig it. And go to their website, aleindustries.com, and their Instagram is Ale Industries. Go follow them. They have some cool photos of the cat as well, Porter the cat, and keep up to date of what stuff they're brewing and whatnot. And because I'm gonna keep up to date, because I'm gonna go check some out today, guys.
There
Yeah.
you go, man. We'll be waiting for you.
Cool. Guys, again, thanks. Really appreciate it. And I just want to tell the viewers real quick to stick around, because I want to chat up with I want to have a post alive and streaming with our fans and whatnot. So guys, thanks for joining us, and we wish you all nothing but positive vibes. Hopefully this lockdown will get lifted soon so everyone could go and hang out at Ale Industries.
Yeah.
Awesome. Man.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
No, thank you, guys. Enjoy your 4th, and I'll see you guys soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
See ya.
man. Be good.
Bye.
All right, guys. Everyone who is viewing, thanks again for taking your time off on this Saturday to come hang out with me and check out what's going on. And my lazy co-host Espen actually hung out for the whole thing, which is awesome. Thank you, bud. I know you're a bit tired and all, but we'll go for a little walk when this is all done. Anyways, I got some good stuff to talk about for the next Alive and Streaming. Sometimes, when I'm on, when I get bored late at night, I'll scour through YouTube, and I have this thing where I kind of look around to see who does Death Angel covers, if there's a band or if there's like a group that does, I like to look around, who does a Death Angel cover. And the only thing I see are like playthroughs, people who play drums or guitars or bass. And I think and I said to myself, I think Death Angel is the least covered band in the world. And, it's kind of breaking my heart right now. I'd like to see bands cover us, but there's this duo, that friends of ours, who covered our song Lost. And it's incredible, man. It's really, really incredible. There's this group called the Cracker Brothers, and they did their version of our song Lost, which we put up on our website. If you go to the showcase, deathangel.us/showcase, you'll see a video of their rendition. I'm losing it today. Their version of Lost. So I suggest you guys go check it out. It's really, really cool. And on the next Alive and Streaming, which is June 11th, next Saturday, I am going to have the Cracker Brothers on to talk about their version of Lost. And joining me for that episode is Will and Mark. Yes, Will and Mark are joining me, and we're going to talk about Lost. And that's going to be a really fun one. So save the date, June 11th, same time, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Will and Mark are going to join us along with the Cracker Brothers. Speaking of Cracker Brothers, let me see here. I want to show you a photo of the Cracker Brothers. I thought when I first, usually when I look online, a metal band or any band doing a cover of Death Angel, but let me share you who these guys are. These guys, badass. There they are, ladies and gentlemen, the Cracker Brothers. That's Scott and that's Eric. Check out their version of Lost. It's up on our website, deathangel.us/showcase. Give it a listen, absorb it, and we shall talk about it June 11th, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also, one more thing. We have leftover merch on our website. If you guys haven't purchased it, go and purchase it. And some of the proceeds go to help the elderly during these tough times through Meals on Wheels. Again, that's it for Live and Streaming. Happy Saturday. Happy 4th to everyone in the US, to everyone watching around the world. Thank you again. And we'll see you next Saturday. Peace out.